If you have one or two kids, you don't really just get to say that tomorrow I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to throw away my career and I'm just going to become an entrepreneur, because that would be irresponsible. Today's going to be a little bit different than my usual edited videos. Today, I'm going to treat you, the audience, as someone who came to me and just said, Derek, my finances suck. Now, what I'm going to share are 3 things that you can use right now to get yourself in a better financial situation. The thing about these 3 things are they're not rocket science. They're not some how to outsmart your credit card company or some weird method. They're just things that work, and they might sound simple because they're meant to sound simple. Now, I don't know what the situation is that you're in, so we're going to make some generalizations, but if you actually use these things, you can get yourself into a better situation. And that's kind of one of the main takeaways here, is that I can't hold you accountable. I can't show up to your house and make you do these things. In fact, no one can except yourself. So if you're in a financial situation that you don't like or that you don't want to be in, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but there's only one person who can actually do anything about it, and that's you. So I'm going to share with you 3 things that you can use, but it's up to you to actually put them to work in your own life. So with that said, and without further ado, as always, my name is Derek, and I got my degree in finance, so you don't have to. Let's change your financial situation. And as I said, this is going to be different than my usual edited video. I'm just going to have a conversation with you. We're just going to go step by step through the 3 steps. Now, the first one sounds quite simple, and that is to get rid of your debt. Now, before you shut off this video, just listen to me for a second. The reason why this is so important is twofold, okay? Most of you probably already know that there is good debt and there is bad debt. If you watch any financial channel whatsoever, you'll know that there's good debt and there's bad debt. Good debt is basically any debt that makes you a return or that grows in value, like a house. Bad debt is like buying that new 98-inch Samsung TV that's $5,000 on a credit card. That's simple stuff. Here's the thing about today, about the situation that we're living in today. Unfortunately, we're living in like the worst financial situation in a long time. And if you're a young guy or young girl, you're living through basically financial hell. And that's just what we're in. We can't change the game. We can just play along. So in today's world, the problem with debt in today's world is that the Federal Reserve has its federal funds rate very high. Now, they are planning on lowering that over the next 2 years. But I said 2 years, not 2 months, which means for the remainder of this year and next year, rates are going to be high, which means there is basically virtually no debt that you're going to be able to beat on an interest rate when it comes to investing. So what does that mean? That means that even a mortgage nowadays is 6, 7, or 8%, depending on your credit. If the average return on the stock market over 50 years is about 10%, that means you have almost no margin for error. And if you include inflation in that, you're basically screwed. So what we have to realize is that right now, it is probably smarter to pay off all debt, good debt and bad debt, until the situation changes. Because right now there is such a small margin for error that maybe 10 years ago, if you had a 3% mortgage and someone came to me and said, hey, Derek, I have a 3% mortgage. Should I pay off that mortgage or should I invest in the stock market? I have 10 grand laying around. Well, I would absolutely say you should invest in the stock market, because the difference between your mortgage and stock market returns are 7%. Even when you throw in inflation in there, you are going to be making money. You should probably never get rid of your good debt. Today, if you have a mortgage, okay, it is so close to what you can get in the stock market, it almost makes no sense to not pay it off, especially when you realize the safety that comes with paying down debt. Now, without trying to sound like Dave Ramsey, because I do think debt is good, the problem is that mortgages are what's known as collateralized debt. That's why the rates are lower. Okay, but if you're watching this video, you might be like many people in America whose average credit card debt is like $5,000 plus. The problem with credit cards is that it is quite literally impossible, unless you're going to study and study and study for hours and become an excellent investor. It is basically impossible for the average investor to beat credit card interest rates by investing. So if you have $5,000 sitting around or $1,000 sitting around and you can put it in a market account or you can pay off your credit card, I'm going to say pay off the credit card. And even if we were in normal times when the federal funds rate is low, you should still pay off your credit card. So first things first, before you do anything else, before you do step 2 or step 3 on this list, you have to pay down your debt. Because if not, you are basically running in place, you are running on a treadmill, you are running in quicksand. You are running and you are running and you are running and you are not getting anywhere because every single dollar that you invest gets you 10% return and the amount that you have sitting on a credit card is eating away at your savings by 20%. So by investing in the stock market or in real estate or anything else, you are literally losing money. So pay off your debts. Usually I say pay off all high interest debt. Right now, if you are in a situation, financial situation that you want to improve on, it's probably a good idea to look at all your debt, find any debt that's above 5%, really above 6-7%, and pay it off. Just get rid of it. That is your first step. And before you do anything else on this list, you have to do that because the next 2 steps, they rely on this being complete. Because if you do step 2, which we're going to talk about here in a second, but you haven't done step 1 and you have a balance on your credit card, it's pointless because of how much credit card interest rates are right now. It's like 25%. And yes, the Federal Reserve is going to lower the Fed's fund rate, and that is going to bring down credit cards and mortgages, but it is barely going to make a dent when it comes to credit cards. They're going to go from 25% to like 20%. So personal loans, credit cards, the ones that are costing you every single day, if you have like a Best Buy card or if you have an account somewhere and they are charging you interest, pay it off before you do any of the other 2 steps. Okay. I hope I made myself very clear because that you need to pay off your debt. So if I've made myself clear, let's move on to the next one, which is step 2. Okay, step 2. Step 2 is also very simple and it's probably staring you in the face, yet most people don't do this. I don't know why. And that is twofold. That is 1, kill all non-essential purchases. Okay, what that means is that if you don't need it, don't buy it. I'm sorry, but Starbucks is not an essential purchase. And I know the whole meme that went around a couple years ago that, ooh, if you'd stop paying $5 for Starbucks, that's not going to change your life. You're right, it's not going to. But $5 a day for Starbucks, every single day for a year adds up. And if you are buying Starbucks for $5 or $6 or $7, I guarantee you that you probably have other non-essential purchases that you are also purchasing. Starbucks is probably not the only one. Now, this is twofold because not only do you need to kill all non-essential purchases, you need to stop buying things, especially non-durable goods. That means things that are meant to be disposed. Stop buying brand names. What I mean by this is if you are buying Ziploc bags for your kitchen, do you really need to buy the Ziploc brand? Or can you go to Target or can you go to Walmart and can you buy their home essentials or whatever the fuck they're called? Do you really need the brand name? Okay, these are for non-essential goods. Certain things you should spend money on. Okay, shoes that are going to last forever. Probably spend money on. A good pair of boots will last forever. But things that are meant to be disposable, stop buying the brand name. At least for now. At least until you improve your situation. Now, what are non-essential purchases? Okay, because there are essential purchases like toilet paper. What are non-essential purchases? Well, Starbucks for one. The second one that's huge for most people is eating out. People spend a ton of money eating out, and I guarantee if you actually looked through your credit card statements or your debit card statements and you actually added up how much you spend eating out, it's going to be more than you think it is. So stop eating out. If you're serious about improving your financial situation, some of these things they might sound like, oh, you're going to ruin my life. I'm going to be so bored. The fact of the matter is if you actually want to improve your financial situation and you are watching this video and you are struggling financially, it shouldn't even be an option. This should have been done a long time ago because eating out is not a requirement. Learn to cook at home. And if you don't want to spend the time learning to cook at home, get some simple ass, it doesn't take rocket science to grill up a chicken breast or to put together a sandwich, but you're going to save money if you stop eating out. Now, the next thing, This is a tough one for a lot of people because it just is. That is drinking alcohol. If you drink alcohol at bars or you go out and you order alcohol, do you know what the markup is on alcohol? Do you know what the profit margins are on alcohol? Okay? Your financial struggles are someone else's profit when it comes to alcohol. Now, it's very easy for me to say just stop drinking alcohol because it's not good for you anyway. But I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is stop drinking alcohol that is overpriced by 3 or 4 or 5 times. If you must drink, drink at home. If you must drink, use this as a time to drink in moderation because it's an expensive thing already. That's just a fact of the matter. Okay? So, non-essential purchases, Starbucks, drinks, eating out, fast food, stop doing it. Forever? No. For a year? For 2 years? Until you get your shit together? Potentially. Now, when we go back to non-durable goods, this means things that can be thrown away. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean Ziploc bags for once. Don't buy brand name. Sponges. Maybe don't buy brand name. Dawn dish soap. Maybe buy the cheaper alternative, okay? They're just little things that I know they sound so stupid and insignificant. But if you actually look at a month where you do all this stuff and then a month where you cut it out, it literally, especially if you're on the lower end of income, it literally can be 10 or 20% of your income. Okay, I want to touch on one other thing. This kind of is in between both. This is kind of like step 1, step 2, and that is car loans. Okay, if you own your car, do not buy a new car. Beat your car into the ground. Everyone knows that owning a car for 10, 15 years is your best bet. If you need a car, do not buy new. Buy used, because one of the major places that people experience depreciation is taking a brand new car and driving it off the lot. So if you need a brand new car, your car is about to fall apart, do not buy new. Buy a reliable brand like Toyota, like Honda, okay? A Japanese brand most likely, Mazda, a reliable brand, and buy it a little bit used and hold it and hold it and hold it for 10, 15 years, okay? Now, if you are leasing, trust me, I like leases, okay? I have nothing against leases, but leases really should be reserved for people who are comfortable wasting money. Because a lease, no matter how good of a lease you get, it is going to be slightly, if not very much more expensive than purchasing a car. If you do have a lease right now, you need to analyze that lease and you need to ask yourself a very serious question. Are you getting ripped off? Okay. The easiest way to figure that out is take 1% of the MSRP of the car. Is your payment above or below that without any money down? If you put money down, you need to add that into the monthly payment. Okay. Divided by how many months you have on the lease. Not how many you have left, but total. Divide it. Okay. If it is more than 1% MSRP, if it's like 2 or 3%, you're getting ripped off. When that lease is over, do not lease again because you don't know what you're doing. It's that simple. If it is below 1%, then perhaps it is a good deal. Sometimes you can get deals that are very, very much below 1%. Okay. In that scenario, maybe you're not getting ripped off. But if you are struggling financially, a lease is most likely not going to make sense in one exception, and that is with an electric vehicle. If you are leasing an electric vehicle and you are leasing it for less than 1% of the MSRP and you have cheap electric rates, then perhaps it makes sense because electric vehicles depreciate hard. So you are avoiding the depreciation and you do not have a gas bill. But if you are fucking leasing like a Toyota Tacoma, that's like 70 grand, or you're leasing like a Chevy Tahoe, that's like 75 grand, and your payment is like $1,000 a month, you're getting ripped off and you're getting screwed and you are screwing yourself. Okay, I think I've made this clear. I hope I have. Step 1 and step 2 are very important because step 3, again, relies on step 1 and step 2. So if you do not do step 1 and step 2, there's no point in watching past this video. If you're looking at this and you're saying, I'm not going to do step 1, I'm not going to do step 2, then don't watch step 3 because there's no point. For everyone else, let's go over step 3. Okay, step 3 is where you can finally start digging yourself out of that hole. Because the other 2 steps, you weren't even digging yourself out of that hole. You just were stopping yourself from digging a deeper hole. Okay? Step 3 is where you can finally start saving and investing. And yes, this is only going to be possible if every single month you have more income than you spend on essentials. Okay, not non-essentials, because you should stop buying those, but on essentials. And that is why it is so vital to get rid of your interest on your debt, by getting rid of your debt and by stopping non-essential purchases and stopping buying expensive brand name things that don't do anything better than the generic one. Because if you are struggling right now and your income is barely keeping up with your expenses, you have to find places where you can cut those expenses. I know that the gurus online say, don't even worry about expenses. Just focus on increasing your income. That's lovely. That sounds lovely. But for the average person, that's impossible. For the average person, they don't really get to pick their income, especially if you have one or two kids. You don't really just get to say that tomorrow I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to throw away my career and I'm just going to become an entrepreneur, because that would be irresponsible. So for the majority of people, it's a nice thought and it's lovely to hear, but in reality, you have to bring down your expenses so that, in hopes that maybe, just maybe, you have a few $100s that you didn't have before at the end of the month, so you can actually start saving and investing. Now, this part 3 is twofold. You do not start investing immediately. You start saving first. And here's the beautiful thing about this messed up situation that we're in. Yes, we're living through a ridiculous financial time. And yes, interest rates are very high, which makes credit card rates and mortgages high. But it also makes high-yield savings accounts very lucrative. Almost lucrative enough to, at least right now, not even have to suggest bonds because of how high the yields are on high-yield savings accounts. So, first and foremost, what you want to do before you start investing is you want to build up your emergency fund. If you have an emergency fund already, that is fantastic. What I would recommend is seeing where that emergency fund is. And if it's like in Bank of America, you're not getting shit. We don't get shit at Bank of America when it comes to interest rates. I've moved most of my money to a high-yield savings account. Now, there are a few good ones. Apple, together with Goldman Sachs, has a good one if you have the Apple Card. If you don't want to get an Apple Card, which you probably shouldn't if you're trying to kill debt, there are many others. SoFi, Ally Bank, there's a bunch. Just make sure it's FDIC insured and keep your 6 months. You really want a 6-month emergency fund. Keep it in a high-yield savings account, okay? Because the beauty of a high-yield savings account is that it's making you way, way more than it would be anywhere else. And at least you're getting something on that money, okay? Now, eventually these high-yield savings accounts are going to disappear because rates are going to come down. They're not going to disappear tomorrow, though. As I said earlier, the federal funds rate, which is controlled by the Federal Reserve, is projected to be down to 3.25% by the end of 2026. Okay, so that's less than half of where it is right now. Right now is 5.25%, between 5.25 and 5.5%. So that's less than a half change, 50% change. So all the way out until 2026. And that's if everything goes perfect, you're going to have some form of a high yield savings account. So use it. Now, what is an emergency fund? Some people say you should have 3 months. Some people say you should have 6 months. Some people say you should have a year. I think 6 months is a great place to aim for. This is basically that if you lost your job tomorrow, you would have 6 months where you could get by. Now, this doesn't mean eating out, and it doesn't mean the Starbucks, and it doesn't mean going to the movies, okay? It's the essentials, okay? So just your essential purchases, the food at home, the bills, the electric, the water, the utilities, okay? The toilet paper, the paper towels, the bare necessities where life might suck for the next 6 months, but you could get by. Whatever that amount is, that should be your emergency savings account, okay? You should have an emergency fund. Now, the problem is the day and age that we're living in right now, the savings rate is, from what I remember, about 3%. Usually I edit these videos, but right now I'm just off the cuff. I believe the savings rate in America is about 3%, which means that for every $100, people are barely saving $3 out of their paycheck. So I know right now it's very difficult to build up any sort of savings. And right now people are living paycheck to paycheck. That is why step 1 and step 2 are so important. Because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you have to look in there and you have to try your best. I know it's fucking hard, but you have to try your best to find places to just grab and dig out just a couple of dollars every single month. So you might be able to make this this emergency fund. Okay. So emergency fund, high yield savings account, 6 months of emergency savings. Okay. Once that is done, so for some of you, that might be a year or 2 years away. This is a long journey. To claw yourself out of a financial hole, it's going to take time. There is no magic bullet. Some people have it easier than others because some people have higher incomes than others. Some people were blessed to inherit what others weren't. No one on this planet has the same financial situation. So if you look at this and you're like, it's going to take me 2 years to dig out of here, good. It'll make you a stronger, better person. No, I don't mean that. But seriously, there's no other way to look at it because no one is in the exact same situation and everyone's life is different and life is not fair. But in a year or 2 years from now, when you've clawed your way out of that hole, out of that financial hole, and you have your emergency savings, then it's time to start thinking about investing for your future. Because one day in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, depending on how old you are, you might not be able to work anymore. And you want to at one point retire, right? Everyone, that's part of the American dream, is being able to retire at some point. And right now, the time that we're living in, that dream is being clawed away from us. So if you want to try to achieve that at some point, you're going to have to start investing. Now, when it comes to investing, you can make it very complicated. I have videos on active investing, on trading, on learning fundamental analysis and technical analysis. You can make it complicated. But for most, the best thing is probably to keep it simple and invest in ETFs, exchange traded funds. Now, the following is not financial advice. It is only my opinion. Please do your own due diligence. But in my opinion, the best thing that most people can do is stick their money in a market tracking fund. That means a fund that tracks either the entire stock market or a portion of the stock market, like VOO. That's a fund. It tracks the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies in the United States, and they are rebalanced every quarter. So as companies grow and companies shrink, you are always investing in the top 500. That is an excellent thing, and in my opinion, it is something that when you are putting together an investment portfolio, it should be the backbone. It doesn't have to be VOO. It can be SPX, which is another market tracking fund. Okay, you need a fund that tracks the market. Okay. Secondly, you can invest in sectors, but instead of investing in just Apple or Tesla or just this individual company that may or may not succeed, you can also invest in funds in sectors that you believe is going to do well. Some of those sectors might be tech. They might be energy. They might be dividends, right? Dividends are stocks that pay you on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis, okay? So these sectors you can invest in, okay, via funds. Like, for example, VGT. That's a fund that I invest in. It is a tech-heavy fund. I think our future is still going to rely on tech, so I invest in that. Okay? You might think that energy is going to do really well. Okay? You can find a fund for energy. You can find a fund for raw materials or precious metals. There are all kinds. Okay? You can find the historical performance on those funds. Okay? And you can also find funds for dividends. And you, by investing in the fund, get diversification built in. Diversification is one of the most important things and cornerstones in finance because it spreads your risk. So if you want dividends, a good one is SCHD or NOBL. Okay, these are funds that will pay you a dividend, and you can look up the percentage. Okay, usually they're anywhere from 1 to 5%. There are some that are higher, okay, but they become increasingly more risky. So you want to stick to the big ones, okay, dividend aristocrats, things of that nature, okay? You might get 1 to 2 to 3 to 4% just on dividends. That's a check that will come to your mail or go right into your brokerage account every single month, every single quarter, every single year, okay? Plus the appreciation of that fund. As the companies grow, the fund's price grows, which means your investment grows, okay? Now, when it comes to investing, the next thing you have to understand is that you must leave it alone for a long time. You cannot be pulling money out, because if you want it to grow for your retirement, 20, 30, 40 years into the future, you have to allow compound interest to do its thing. If you are constantly withdrawing the profits, okay, you are not going to grow. So you have to leave it alone, not touch it. Not only that, the markets go up and the markets come down. So instead of trying to time it, you might need to withdraw it when the market is down. If you're planning on withdrawing it in a year from now, we cannot predict exactly what's going to happen in a year from now. So they need to be long time frames, 10 years. So you have time to go through the ups and downs. And when you invest, you might immediately have lost money the next day. That's not what it's about. It's about the long time frames. 10 plus years is usually what people say. Okay? So invest, don't touch it, let the compounding returns do their thing, and have what's known as a long time horizon. Okay? Plan for retirement. Don't pull it just to pull it because you made profit. Don't monitor it every day. Just invest in it and let it do its thing. The next thing I can advise is, if you get to that point in your journey where you've clawed your way out of this mess and you can afford a financial advisor, that might be something to consider, because they can give you tailored suggestions to you. Okay? I can't do that because I don't know your personal situation. I feel connected to you guys just through the camera. I really do. I love this stuff and I love sharing this information, but I don't know your exact financial situation. So it would not be right of me or legal for me to give you personalized financial advice. That is what a financial advisor is for. And some of them are very good. So we have 3 steps. Okay? If you're watching this video and you've made it this far, we have 3 steps. Okay? The first one, get rid of your debt, especially your high interest debt, your credit card debts, your personal loans. But right now, it might even be good to pay off your mortgage if you're a brand new mortgage holder and it's 8%. I mean, there's an argument to just paying that off instead of investing, okay, because of how high the interest rates are right now. Now, hopefully in 2 years, you can refinance to a lower rate, but anything that you can't, pay it off, okay? Because if you instead invest, if you do step 3 before step 1, you're losing money, because you're never going to get a return higher than like a credit card rate of 20% or 25%, okay? Step 2, stop buying non-essential purchases. I know Starbucks tastes good, but it's expensive, okay? So cut out all non-essential purchases, movies, eating out, at least for the short term, just to try to be able to save a little bit of money, okay? Next, don't buy brand name things. Stop buying brand name things when they're non-durable goods. Trash cans, Ziploc bags, toilet paper, paper towels. You don't need the brand name. Save a little bit of money. Sometimes it's significant. And when you add all that together, it might be 10 or 20% of your income, all of step 2. Okay? And step 3, finally, get your emergency fund when you can finally start saving. Put it in a high yield savings account, and then and only then start investing for your retirement. I hope this video was informative. I know this is a weird video if you've watched me before. Usually these videos are like super edited, okay? But I just wanted to kind of just talk and share my experiences and try to just share a little bit of knowledge with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I love this stuff. I love sharing it on YouTube, and I really want the channel to grow so I can keep sharing a ton of good information with you guys and with many, many other people. If you like personal finance, world economics broken down simply, that's usually what we do, so you are in the right place. We talk about the Federal Reserve, we talk about investing, we talk about major world economic events, and I try to share that with you guys and break it down for you guys so you guys are informed. With that said, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you next week in the next video. Take care.